We're coming to you from a typical English cafe in central London, just a few meters or yards away from the British Parliament. We're going to do a very English thing, which is to have English breakfast. It's a shame, however diverse London is, they don't serve masala dosa and masala chai in these cafes, and I certainly miss that. The reason we are here with this fantastic bunch of guests that I have is to be able to discuss this historic win for the Labour Party on the 5th of July. Keir Starmer, the new Prime Minister of England, of Britain, not just England, although Conservatives lost Wales. What sort of changes are likely to be seen? What happened? What went wrong for the Conservatives? And what are young first-time voters thinking and hoping for? What is the business fraternity hoping for? And in general, what is trade? What are British Indian voters thinking about? That's the theme. So I'm going to jump across to all of you. Whoever wants to go first. Your reaction to this election victory for the Labour?
Well, it's a historic win for Labour. It's the largest majority they've ever had. The Conservative Party is the smallest party it's ever been. So this is it's huge.
Not a surprise?
We're not really that surprised. The polls were all saying that the Conservatives will lose. They were inevitably right. A lot of people switched. Reform, our right-wing party, got a lot more support. And
is that a surprise?
That is a surprise. So I think Rishi called this election too soon. Had he waited 3 months, Nigel Farage would have been in America supporting Trump. He wouldn't have taken over being leader of reform, and he would have had much fewer votes, fewer seats.
Okay. Okay. Your reaction?
Initial reactions. I don't want to say shock, but a sense of nervousness regarding the future. But I think I'd potentially have that no matter who won. Just given the fact that you're never sure how their policies they've pledged or alleged that they're going to enact will play out. So I'm trying to maintain an open outlook to the situation and make sure that I try and think with a calm, collected mind. So we shall see what happens in the coming weeks and months.
Okay. Look forward. Gotham.
Actually, a question for Nitesh.
Yes.
So is this, people are talking about this being the end of the Conservative Party. The party, is it completely broken, or will they come back?
I mean, people said it was the end of the Conservative Party in 1997, and it wasn't. They came back 13 years later, David Cameron, big majority. They came back 2019 with the biggest ever majority. 5 years ago, no one would have ever imagined them to have lost so many seats. This is never the end of the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party is broken, some little fractions. It will come back together again. It is an election-winning machine. I mean, you forget that the Labour Party have only ever won 5 elections
Since democratic Britain, but we'll come back to that. Whether they will come together is the question. Question for you. We've seen 14 years of Conservative rule in Britain. Do you see this huge fatigue that has built up among voters to last beyond 5 years, and that trend continues where the Labour could last beyond 5 years?
Interesting. Look, I think people are angry. Europe's angry. We're all angry.
They're very angry.
And we've all been suffering. So I think now with modern media, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, we, the common folk, have more of a voice than we had before. We've seen a lot of big changes, right? No one predicted Brexit. The anger at Brexit was immense. So if Labour don't deliver, we'll change again. Maybe the Lib Dems, give them a shot.
Yeah, considering they've done so very well. Yes, over to you. So 2 first-time voters. Did I even introduce all of you guys? Let's start with introductions. Yes, Nitesh.
Nitesh Balana.
Okay, and you're representing the business fraternity. Tell us a
Sure.
little bit
So,
in a line.
Nitesh Balana, I work for a UK fintech unicorn called Thought Machine. We have a presence in India, global company, so we have a presence in India, and I suppose I represent the business fraternity.
Okay.
My name is Yuvraj Arora, and I am a student of politics, philosophy and economics at the University of Edinburgh. So I'm
And a first-time voter.
and a first-time voter. Yeah, so that was interesting yesterday.
Yes, yes, a first-time voter.
Yeah, I'm a first-time voter as well. I'm Rihanna Bojwani. I'm a psychology student at the University of Warwick.
Okay.
Gautam Krishna, I'm an asset manager. We deploy wealth globally. Actually, last few investments have all been in India. So, big India files.
Very important questions coming your way. And because you mentioned social media, I'd really love to know some of the memes that really amused you during the course of these elections. Yes, your reaction and hope, if I may ask.
Yeah, I think, like you said, it wasn't a surprise at all. When we were looking at the polls prior to the election, it was sort of looking at Labour winning quite a few weeks before. I think I'm interested to see the change because obviously we haven't had anything other than the Conservative Party leading for the past 15 years. So I'm interested to see what change Keir Starmer and the rest of the Labour Party make to our country. I'm a little bit interested to see how some of their policies work out. I think, especially with the extra VAT on private schools, I'm not really sure how they plan to prevent overcrowding of students that might move to state schools, overcrowding for state school facilities and teachers. But it should definitely be interesting to see how they plan to carry out their policies and develop them further.
Yeah. It's so important, isn't it? The things that an individual voter keeps in mind when they cast their vote. Of course, party ideology, personality, all of this plays an important role, but issues also matter. For instance, the mention of private school education going to be taxed, that's something that has had a huge resistance from Indian parents, and that's because 42% of Asian background students or pupils go to private and independent schools, which are close to about 2,500 in this nation. So Keir Starmer as a person versus Keir Starmer as the politician, what do you make of the two, considering since the age of 16, he's been with the Labour Party. So he's really soaking in Labour philosophy and Labour ideology, which is, as we know, left. But his narrative over the last 5 years has been quite central. Maybe to change the image. Is that a PR gimmick? Is that being a smart politician? Who wants to go?
I think he had to move to the centre to win the election. And we know that because in 2019, Jeremy Corbyn was so far to the left and he lost so badly. So, I mean, not only has he been a member since he was 16, he's also named after Keir Hardie, the other famous Labour politician. So it's Labour through and through. I think you're right, issues are important and schooling is very important. I think we forget that you can't politicise schooling. You can't make it into a class politics. Education is one of the most important solutions to all of our problems.
And it's not a privilege.
It's not a privilege. And also, you talk about Indian parents, you talk about many parents, make a sacrifice when they pay for the school fees. They're not multimillionaires. They choose to pay for school fees over a nicer house or another car or whatever. They've made a sacrifice to send the kids to school and make sure they get the best opportunities. But in the country, you want every single student to meet the full potential. Because if that happens, you can compete against global nations like India and China. But without that, if you bring everyone to a mediocre level, which is what this policy will do, it means that you have fewer people getting the best out of education. And without education, you have problems in the NHS, because the smarter population are a healthy population. Without education, you have problems in welfare, because the smart population are less likely to claim welfare. Without education, you have long-term pension problems, because people don't save. So all the problems that we currently have in the country and will have in the future can be solved by education, but they've turned education into a class political divide, which shouldn't happen.
Sure. Just for the benefit of our viewers, what we're talking about is Keir Starmer announced that private school education is going to be taxed, which means children or pupils who go to private schools will have to pay at least 20% higher fees, which would burden a lot of parents who make different choices, as Nitish pointed out. You said some people choose not to buy a car. I met a parent who chose not to have another child so that her first child could have the best of everything because the child had special needs, and in state schools there's already a lot of pressure. So there are multiple reasons why this move is seeing a lot of resistance already before it can go ahead, but it seems as if that is going to be the first thing that Keir Starmer would do. But taking this conversation a little broader, did you consider Rishi Sunak and his British Indianness when you cast your vote?
Yeah, definitely. I think when I was talking to a lot of my relatives and just other people just trying to gauge who they were voting for, a lot of my relatives said that they were voting for Rishi Sunak because they had that loyalty to Indians, and especially because the representative for Conservatives in my constituency is also Indian. So I think I definitely had a bit of a conflict between, should I be staying loyal to someone who's of the same background, of the same race as me, or should I be more looking at the policies and the manifestos of each party and deciding which ones align with my views more rather than who the person actually is.
Yeah, okay. Interesting thought. It's going to be quite different because when Rishi Sunak took oath as Prime Minister, the first Prime Minister of Indian origin to take over Britain as Prime Minister, he took his oath on the Bhagavad Gita. Keir Starmer is an atheist, and he's going to offer his allegiance to the king. So quite a very quite different personalities or people that we will see.
Both are vegetarian.
Are they?
Both are vegetarian.
Is he pescatarian? I thought Keir Starmer is pescatarian and his wife is vegetarian.
I hear both are vegetarian.
Are they?
Both Rishi
Okay.
and Keir are vegetarian.
Okay. By that measure, that's a cue. That's a cue. He's saying, bite into your sandwich. Go for that sandwich. Gotham, does it amuse you that this result has also reflected a big diversity in thought process by voters in Britain? Yes, the large majority has voted for what Keir Starmer claims to be centre-left. But we know the Labour has always been left-leaning. The Lib Dems, centre. The Reform has made so many headways, so that's far-right representation. The Conservatives managed to do better than some polls predicted, a double-digit they said, but they are now officially the opposition party. So there's going to be that voice. And then SNP, which didn't do very well, but the Lib Dems have done so very well. So, and then Jeremy Corbyn winning.
Ideologies will change. Right now, Britain needs investment. We need to have our NHS fixed. The schooling issue, by the way, is a huge fiasco. Did you know that in Germany, if you send your kid to private school, you get a tax credit because you're not overburdening the state, and the state recognizes that. So these things have to be changed. And as Nitesh says, education is a privilege. I voted for Rishi because he's a product of hard work, hard education. He's done things the hard way. He's a guy that I want my children to be like. No one knows enough about Keir, the Prime Minister. He has to open up. We don't know his ideologies other than let's print money and fix things. So and where we're going to get that money, we don't know yet. So the ideology in England right now is we have to fix infrastructure, we have to fix the NHS, get the schooling done. We don't also have a choice on schooling. If you don't want to send your children to private school, there are not enough places in regular government school. So what choice do we have?
Yeah.
So
and it's also based on catchment area, isn't it? Whichever area you live in, and a lot of people can't afford the better schools in better areas because houses are so very expensive in those areas. Okay, great segue to my next question, which is, let's talk issues. What do you want changed, hopefully, in the next 1 month? Is it fewer crimes, more police on the road? If yes, where will they come from, as Keir has promised? What do you want changed immediately, urgently? Or free trade agreement? What?
So everyone wants better value public services, and whether that's better value police or better value NHS, that's what people want.
What do you want?
What do I want? I want the same as everyone. I want safety and security for me and my family. I want great value public services. That's what everyone should want.
And do you feel unsafe in London?
I do. I feel less safe in London than I did 10 years ago.
Yeah. Okay. What do you want?
I think the core point, maybe I'm thinking of this as an economist, but the economy is in a state of disrepair.
Yes.
So whatever Labour decides to do now, it needs to be centred around trying to get more funding to help not just with the public services and immigration, I think is a big issue, illegal immigration, but also how can we fix the economy and finding viable, feasible and sustainable ways to garner that money is very important. So I think the economy is number one priority right now.
Sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, understandable for a student considering fixing the economy could take some time, but that may mean inflation comes down, which may mean prices could perhaps gently go up, but then eventually will correct itself. What do you want?
Yeah, I think as a more general thing, I would say what you guys have said already, the cost of living and just public services. For me as a psychology student, I think I would really like to see more funding towards mental health services. I think
Which
when
has
I was
been promised
reading-
in his manifesto.
Yeah, I was reading the manifestos and they had little bits and bullet points of more funding towards the NHS, more specifically towards mental health services. But we have so many people now that are struggling with these wider issues because of COVID and just general life, which
And the
affects
cost
so
of
many
living
aspects.
crisis,
Yeah,
which is
definitely.
contributing. Yes.
Yeah, which affects so many aspects of life, whether it be education or in your productivity in the workplace. So I think if we are able to target that first and foremost, I think that would be great.
Thank you. Thank you for mentioning that. Hopefully those bullet points on the manifesto will turn into actual appointments in the calendar for many who've been waiting for years and years to get an appointment with the NHS or get that social care. What do you want?
So I would like for us to all have a way to get back into Europe. I was a Brexiteer. We got it wrong. I think.
That's very honest of you.
Yeah, we made a mistake, but let's go back to it. And then the second agenda is climate change. No one's talking about climate change anymore. So that's got to be back on our bullet points.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. Clearly, as much a priority as much as fixing the economy is. The India-UK scenario, I'm going to keep this really very brief, and maybe I'll cut across to both, and maybe even the economist in you. Your wish list for India-UK relations to sort of alter itself. How do you see a third version of the Modi government with a Keir Starmer left government here? Will foreign policy look any different? Should there be a free trade agreement? What is your wish list?
So there should be a free trade agreement. We've had 14 rounds so far. Let's make it 15 and just sign it next time round. Let's do this quickly. Look, a free trade agreement is beneficial to both India and the UK. UK exporters need to have access to the Indian market, and they need to do it in a tax efficient way. India would benefit hugely from having more people being able to come to the UK and work. It works for everyone. So I think Keir recognises that. I heard David Lammy speak about this a couple of weeks ago. He's very supportive of it. So I think the Labour Party will hopefully get the free trade agreement signed.
Yeah, and students would want free entry in the sense basis merit and not surprises thrown at them, right? Any thoughts on student immigration and access to good standard higher education for students traveling from India, let's say? Have you had friends who've struggled to stay on? And
I think so, especially in the last couple of years. I've noticed that friends of mine or family friends who have come from India and are studying here have really struggled, and there have been some issues on that front with the lack of support actually from universities in terms of providing them with the right information on how best to go about their 3 or 4 years, depending on where they are in the UK for university. So I think that's a major issue, and if your point was very, very important. You need to keep those relations sweet because, as you said, there's a lot of reliance on both sides for one another, and there's many Indians in the UK who would benefit from that. So I think that's my outlook would be yeah.
you mentioned Trump. The US is voting. India is a new government. Here we have a new government. India-UK relations. What are you thinking on that?
I think it's very important. I think Labour is a natural ally to India. And we can't, as Nitesh says, 15 rounds. 15th hopefully will be the lucky one. We need India. The UK is a
Who
big.
doesn't need India? I mean, look at the economy. Yeah.
The world needs India.
Yes. Yes.
No, I think there's a natural fit. I hope the two governments can keep things cordial. Modi, I guess, is also humbled in his final term in office, so he'll want to get things done. Mr. Starmer needs to show progress. So where the Conservatives couldn't, maybe he can deliver. So we have to have an open, honest communication. Both countries need each other. Let's see if it can work.
Okay, fabulous. Long wish lists. It's a wait and watch. There's a sense of hope, a sense of maybe a mild excitement, even though the election result hasn't quite been a big shock or a surprise. Okay, I've kept you guys long enough from your sandwiches. Go for it. It's a shame you're not eating masala dosa, but it is. But thank you so much, all of you, for sharing your views. Radhika Iyer from Central London, from a little tiny but a very, very charming cafe, with camera person Amit Navik for NDTV.